Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink. Again, make sure you guys go out, support our awesome local friends here, Waggle Golf. Check them out, getyourwaggleon.com. And of course, those of you that are new here, promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Mailbag episode this week. Joe got some great questions from followers out there on the Twitter/X machine. We will be doing another one of these probably as camp comes to a close or kind of right as the season's kicking off. So make sure if you don't already, follow Joe on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Joe Smith NHL, and be on the watch for the next mailbag. And of course, all of the great articles that him and Michael Russo have been pumping out, especially with all of this Kirill Kaprizov news. I very much empathize, feel very bad that they have to deal with all this, but great job security. But so Joe and Isha are going to run through those Minnesota Wild questions, and stay tuned. We've got some great guests lined up for the next couple of weeks here for all of you. Enjoy.
Well, Joe, back here tagging in midway through this episode for the mailbag portion. And we got a few questions here. Shout out to everybody on Twitter who commented on Joe's call to action for this segment of the show. Let's start with one from Cares About Hockey. Where does Rossi look like he's slotting in?
A good question. I mean, I think, anytime you ask about line combinations, you have a kind of written on a board going to the camp, and then all of a sudden that changes like 3 days in. But I think as of right now, you'll probably see him on a second line with Tarasenko and Boldy, at least to start camp, which means you'll have, Ek with Kaprizov and probably Zuccarello to start up top, at least for the start. I mean, Thursday's first day on ice. We'll figure that out then. But it seems to me he's right there at 2C. Now, we've heard that Hartman had a great offseason as well and looks great in skates, captain skates so far. So I think he's picked up where he left off in the playoffs, which is a good sign for them, have an option for him up the middle in the middle six or the wing. But I think to start, you'll see Rossi in that second line role.
And I think that's what was expected, but something that the fans are kind of like rolling their eyes at. Not everybody, but some of them, because they're like, well, we know that works. It's kind of a safety net, but like maybe there's potential elsewhere.
Well, I mean, there is, and I think they've got to see what Urov has, right? And I think Urov will get some more looks in training camp. He'll get some exhibitions. They got to see beyond the rookie tournament, right? He's only can see so much in the prospect showcase, which I think Adam Bennick was the runaway top, performer for the Wild, at least. I know Zeev was good and Urov showed flashes, of course, but Bennick was probably the best or most highlighted player from that showcase last weekend. But I think, Urov, I think they need to spend some time with him and give him a chance at center, which I think they will start him there and kind of see how he does. This is his first real NHL camp and NHL exhibition. So, a lot of expectations and hype for him. I think people are excited about him, but just to know that he's his first look here. So I think that's where you see Rossi number two second line center. Well, maybe they'll put in Urov in some exhibitions in that role and see where he fits. But I think overall you'll probably see Eriksson Ek, and then you'll see Rossi, and then obviously Urov will get a chance up the middle. Hartman played really well up the middle in the playoffs, so maybe you start him there. But so they have, and then Nico Sturm is the 4C. So we'll see what happens, but that's kind of where I see him starting.
Thanks for the question. Alec Clark asks, does how much one guy gets paid and how that impacts the cap something that players are aware of? So are players necessarily aware of what's going on cap wise, and do you think it affects them?
Well, I mean, I think they are aware of the salary cap. You wouldn't know by negotiations, I guess, right? But everyone's all kind of separate in that. But players are very much students of the game, and I don't know if they're on Puckpedia like we are as much as fans are, but I think they have a realistic point of view of they all knew this past summer was going to be a big one because of the cap gets coming off. They all knew that. We didn't have to tell him that. They all kind of had an idea of, the July 1st could be a big for this team, and not being big because of the market the way it was. And Foligno talked about this yesterday at the golf tournament. Hey, I think we all thought there'd be something bigger coming on, but we understood what happened, and obviously the the management had a better idea of who was out there, what they could get versus spending all this money on maybe the right guy or right fit. So in time will tell whether that was the restraint pays off with buying low on a Tarasenko on a bounce back year for him and giving your younger guys a chance to play. So if those younger guys work out, all of a sudden might not need as much beefing up in the off season. So yes, I think for the most part, like a lot of guys do get it and they understand where the cap is, but I think it's also, pushes you into situations like, people ask Kaprizov, well, he doesn't want 16 million and he wants more. How will that affect how they can build a team around him? I think guys have to have only one career. They have to kind of go and push for what they can get. They think they're worth, but I think they do understand what this guy signing does affect the cap.
Yeah, and obviously, unless it's commented upon in the media by said player, their camp, like we don't really know exactly every detail and what he wants. Like, does he want shorter terms so that he can win now and have maybe an option to go play somewhere else if the team just doesn't end up building a Stanley Cup winning team or at least a competitive playoff team. But what I've actually loved learning this summer, which obviously like the hockey news comes to a halt, things slow down, it's the off season, but I've gone back and listened to just a lot of player podcasts and just outside of like the big ones like Spit and Chicklets, like YouTube channels that interview players. And what surprisingly I've come away like learning is obviously players want the big guys to stay so they can continue to win and keep like the team intact. But at the end of the day, like they're happy for each other, especially the ones who are like have a really good relationship with each other. Now, not every team has a bunch of friends on the team. A lot of the teams out there just work well together. But for the most part, guys are happy that guys get what they want, whether that's the contract they're looking for or, the money. And so that's just something that literally I've just been listening to recently on a bunch of shows, and it was kind of it kind of went hand in hand with this. But Alec follows up the question just being or commenting and saying Kirill said he wants to win. It's believed that he wants to win, but if he gets too big a piece of the cap pie, I question if it is about winning. If Kirill gets 19 plus, limits the team built around him. And you commented on that as well. Yeah, if you're getting that big piece of the pie, well, can you build a winning team around someone when you have that percentage of the cap total?
And we don't know if it's going to get to that point of the 19. I know we could get to, I think, 20 next year, right? Because the cap goes up or whichever. Like, I think at this stage, all we know is that, Kirill Kaprizov did turn down that initial offer, which was the largest offer in NHL history. And it was a very strong offer by the Minnesota Wild. Now, he's not, he doesn't have to take it. It's part of negotiations, right? You could have an agent telling you, hey, let's not take the first offer. Let's see, maybe in the market next year, whisper, you can get more, right? And so this is not to say that this is over, that he's not signing here. Like there's still, a chance. And I think the Wild are still committed to, continuing conversations at some point here with Kirill. And we'll hear from Kaprizov on Thursday after the first day of training camp. And so I don't know how much he'll say, but I'd rather have him speak for himself versus me. But when we understood that he turned that offer down, I thought, either he thinks something else might be out there and they can maybe get a little more, not saying 20 million, but the difference between 16 and 17 or whichever, and two, like you're a player, you have one career, a chance to do, and he has to decide. I think he loves it in Minnesota. He's told us that, and he's told teammates that. I don't think he's disingenuous in saying he loves it in Minnesota. He loves his teammates. Yep. He generally thinks it's a good fit. So I don't think he's lying there. I just also know that if I'm a player and I'm one of the best in the world, that's what I do, I know I'm going to take this whole thing and I'll have one really big shot at a contract. I want to know that I'm in a situation where I can for sure have a chance to win and make a run. And so I understand why, you would take some time with that, why you would, want to know all the different puzzle pieces and stuff. So, I think that right now that they'll probably go back and talk to him in coming days and see where his head's at. And, Kirill will talk on Thursday. Bill Guerin will talk on Thursday. The first day of training camp, so we'll have maybe more news coming out of that. But I think there was an initial shock to the system for Wild fans when they heard that because, you hear all the time he wants to stay. You hear all the time the Wild want to sign him. You assume it'll just be first time they meet in person is going to be like, oop, that's it, it's over, they're signing. But now if he signs before the start of the season, will people all of a sudden forget all this and be bygone be bygones? I'm sure they will. But
yeah,
I think eventually, it's still in the point where it's not something where I don't think it's going to be, it's over at this point. It could get to that point eventually, and then you'll have to have some more serious conversations of what do you do if you do find out he doesn't want to sign, period, not just sign for more money.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll find out more on Thursday from him and Bill Guerin, and but obviously it's added a dominant storyline to Wild training camp, whether they like it or not. It will become, I think, a distraction, at least because people like us are asking the players about it, and we're asking it because the fans and our subscribers care about it, and so we want to know how it's affecting the team, how it's affecting him. So we'll be asking those questions, and that's part of the storyline beyond of what all the other things going on with the team that we'll talk about, from health of Jonas Brodin to where Urov fits in to Tarasenko and all that stuff. But when he's the best player in franchise history, he's going to create a lot of attention, and I think there's no more important decision or more important signing for the Wild. I mean, obviously the Parise Suter thing was a huge one long-term for the franchise, but there's no greater impact to a franchise right now than it would be than Kirill Kaprizov in signing in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, and you said it there as well. I think it's clear as day that he likes it here. There's been no inclination that he doesn't. I think he wants to win. He wants to win. He's entering his prime, if not already in his prime. He's a Gagarin Cup winner. He's already won in the second best league in the world in the KHL. He's an Olympic gold medalist. Now, not under his flag, but the Olympic athletes of Russia. Same difference. What else does he need? A world championship doesn't matter as much as a Stanley Cup, right? So, I understand. I understand if it's a term thing, 100%. And like you said, we'll have more information seeing how this plays out preseason and come start of season here. Lizzie asks us, Lizzie Clendenning, Brodin, one of the best skaters in the NHL. Agreed. What other defenseman has similar skating?
It's a good question. Trying to think of smooth skating. I don't know if it's Werenski's a really good skater. Slavin's a good skater. It's different than I covered Victor Hedman for such a long time in Tampa. He's a bigger than Brodin, but they're just this kind of this effortless stride with the way they skate. And I don't know if they're necessarily alike in that, but I think when I watch Brodin skate, there's a lot of power behind it, but it doesn't feel like he's doing a lot. He's kind of easing along the ice, and very few people in the world can skate with a McDavid and those guys, and that's why he's so important to this team. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I have to think about all the teams and which ones have kind of a left shot D who can skate and can move. But
just the way he skates backwards blows my mind. I've never seen someone just do it with such ease.
And that's why he gets the top matchups all the time, and why he's so important. And he'll be a storyline in camp too, because coming off the injury in this past season, so he'll most likely miss at least the start of the season. Not very long, they think, but at the start of training camp on Thursday, he won't be an active participant. He'll probably be skating on his own. So don't be alarmed if he's not part of line rushes and stuff, because he's still working back from that injury. But at least they feel that he will be back in the early part of the season, or maybe the first week or so, depending on how the rehab goes. But that also opens up some spots or some playing time for guys on the back end, whether it's a Juracek or Jack Johnson on a PTO, his chances of making the team. So definitely add some more intrigue when it comes to the roster that is pretty stable at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Christopher Cash asks, we saw a huge increase in productions via goals and assists, as well as aggressiveness when the beef line, Boldy, Ek, and Foligno, was stood up. Why is nobody mentioning that as being a second line option anymore?
Boldy, Ek, and Foligno? That'd be interesting.
That's a big line. That's a tough line to play against, and there's a lot of skill in that line.
There is. I think Foligno has sneaky skill as well. I guess what's your top line then? If it'd be Zuccarello, Kaprizov, and Rossi then?
Rossi, yeah. That doesn't look too bad either, and it's proven to be. I mean, Rossi and Zuccarello have been able to play well with each other.
you put Tarasenko on the third line, I guess, with like Hartman and.
At that point, you could split time between your so-called beef line as your second and the Tarasenko line as third too. Just use it matchup wise, right? Shut down the top line with the beef, clear up some matchups for the other two.
Yeah, well, I think also somebody brought up too, like if Urov does pop, right? Let's say he does show he can play and play at a high level, which we don't know that yet, but big picture, you have a chance of like Urov and Rossi, and then all of a sudden you open up Ek to play with like a Hartman and Foligno. Like that's one hell of a line. I think a hell of a line to play. So I think but that all takes different dominoes to fall to where they needed Ek as their top line center last year, right? And their line with Boldy and Kaprizov was unbelievable. But that's where Bill Guerin said at the end of the season they needed some help for Ek. You couldn't just be top line guy all those minutes plus top shutdown center plus he's on the power play in that front and he's on the PK. So they wanted to get him some help, which is why Nico Sturm came in for face-offs and PK and stuff. And, clearly bringing Rossi back. And then if Hartman can elevate his game like he did in the playoffs, and all of a sudden you're a little bit thicker up the middle.
There we go. Well, that's all the questions we have for the mailbag portion. So big shout out to everybody on Twitter who answered Joe's call to action there. Anything else going on that we need to discuss or that you want to share with the listeners, Joe?
This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it. That makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order.
Yeah, obviously, the Kaprizov negotiations, me and Mike Russo are writing about that a lot, and we'll continue to write as this week goes on. We'll have some storylines for camp that are coming up, probably for Thursdays, be posting then, the Brodins and factors, the roster hopefuls, the people that, guys that were signed that people might thought, oh, they're not going to make the team, but you never know with how the first day of camp works, the camp situation works. Tarasenko, I think he's going to be a fascinating player to watch in training camp, how he looks after the summer. He's very motivated coming off last year in Detroit. Felt like a really good connection with John Hines when John Hines came down to Florida, had that kind of 5-hour hangout / meal at his house, and feel that relationship's very important for him as a player to know the coach can be very specific on this is what my role is going to be and this is what I can do. And so I think that trust will be important as he starts this new fresh start with the Wild. So I'm curious to see how he looks, whether his skating he can still skate with the best of them and still be able to get that ridiculous shot off. So I'm going to be watching for that as training camp goes along. And I think for me, Isha, I think people talk about these young players for a long time, and I'm really curious, how does he come in after this year, the summer of getting 10 to 12 pounds and feeling better, more primed for a regular role. And Juracek, I think I'm curious about him. Since last time we saw him, he had lacerated his spleen.
Had a great year in the AHL. How's he going to look in camp? Maybe not to be obviously a regular on the team this year, but maybe one of the call-up guys. Height coming from junior now as a pro his first year. There's just so many questions I have for the young guys, and not all of them are going to get opportunities this year, but some of them are going to get their first look pro, which begs a whole other question, which I'm surprised nobody asked you about, Iowa. There's a lot of big changes coming to Iowa as well. And there needs to be changes, right? And there needs to be changes, not only now for the sake of that franchise, but for the Wild's sake, developing some of these guys.
They do. And Greg Cronin came in, he was there at the Prospect Showcase coaching the group. And, I think he has a lot more obviously experience coaching AHL than Brett McLean did. which I think was part of the issue there. Like I like Brett McLean a lot as a guy and as a coach. I think he works hard to get his heads and hearts in the right place, but I wasn't sure if he had the right type of experience leading a program, which he never really had, that Greg does. And I know there was some questions in the past of him being hard on guys, obviously in Anaheim, and whichever I talked to players in Anaheim who've had a kind of more of a measured response in terms of him. Like, yeah, he was hard on guys. Yeah, he learned from year 1 to year 2 of maybe being too hard on some of the younger guys and kind of adjusted from that. And some guys are just like, he just is that one of those kind of coaches. That
sometimes people need that.
I think they getting accountability there, getting some just a clear identity for that team, and which is hard to do with a team that's kind of a carousel of players from the AHL to NHL, but like get an identity, and like the Wild have had an identity as a team. Like either have your own one or create one that fits your personnel. So I think I'll be really curious. I'll be spending some time in Iowa too to see how it's actually going.
Nice.
On the ground, like I did last couple of years, to see, because they'll be having important prospects there as this year and the years go on. So thinking of Iowa, like I think another one we'll look at is Jesper Wallstedt. He was obviously came back from Sweden early August, so he's been working out with the guys there, and like how he's going to look in training camp. Like, is he ready and refreshed and ready to start over again after last year, admittedly terrible season? So I think I'm curious to see how him and Gustafsson kind of mesh together. And no matter if Gustafsson's going to be the number one, which he will be, and he'll play 55 plus games, like there are a lot of condensed schedule here with the Olympics coming up, to where you're going to have to play Wallstedt a decent amount, So I think.
Well, and how's Levi going to look as probably the next call-up guy, the way he played last year too?
Yeah, and they've made some depth signings there in goal for both Iowa and for in Minnesota, because we have one injury away from either Wallstedt show or like having somebody else needing to play some quality NHL minutes. So I think the goaltending is in a good spot with like Gustafsson especially, who they could very well sign to an extension, during camp. If that, you've got the goalies that are being signed now, the number's only going up for everybody. So I think that'll be interesting to watch, as camp goes along. And I think Wallstedt, for me, I think this year is going to be much better for him. I think he'll be a known defined role. He knows in the NHL. He knows how important this year is. He's going to be motivated. He's going to have all the resources around him, from Gustafsson to Freddie Chabot, the goalie coach, to Marc-Andre Fleury. My guess is he'll be around. I don't think he'll be making an official role yet, but you still have access
when he's back from Pittsburgh, right?
When he's back from PTO and his farewell there. So there's going to be, a lot of chances for him to kind of come in and not be the guy yet, even though he wants to be the guy eventually. Like, there's a little bit less pressure of you're not the number one goalie here yet. Like, you can play, when you're going to play, a week in advance. I'm going to play this game on Saturday and back to back. I got to be ready and focus on this. So I really do think it'll be a good turnaround here for Jesper Wallstedt. I think that's what the Wild are hoping.
Yeah, and I'm my last thing that I'll add here before we turn it back to Scott to close things out is, in regards to Iowa, there's a lot of potential now, right? Like, yep, coaching staff changing over, a little bit more of a hard-nosed coach, which, like you said, some guys respond well to, some guys don't. But hey, it wasn't working one way, so it's going to change now. And the fact that you mentioned identity, like, this is such a young core group with so much talent and potential. I can't help but make them like comparison to like, a Manitoba Moose in the day before it fed the entire Canucks roster of all those guys, right? Where like all these young guys, maybe like we're a year out of when they joined the big club, but for 2-3 years developed together, created that identity, whether it was like hard nose, whether it was skill, whatever it is. And there's like you look at Tampa's farm club in Syracuse before they all made the jump to Tampa, and you were there. You saw it all happen, right? There's potential for that to happen in Iowa. I just think now it's on, honestly, like the organization management to get the right people in there, the right voices in there to lead these guys.
And I wrote that big story at the end of the year about winning and development and going hand in hand. And I know people have different opinions on that, but I do think it's important for these guys to play in some meaningful games down the stretch. Like, winning can be a trait that you learn and develop, but you have to have those winning habits that you learn by the trial by fire, by playing in those big games. And I think if Iowa can have a better season here, make the playoffs, and like all of a sudden some of these guys, the the hates that they're not called up. Lambos hasn't played in the playoffs in a while. Other young defensemen coming through. Riley Height will have his first pro hockey experience. You could argue he probably would have been better fit of coming back to going to Iowa last year if he could have through the rules for his development purposes. So interesting to see how that'll work out. But clearly the Wild, assuming they stay healthy, have a roster where they, if they're healthy and younger guys, like two of the four young guys pop on this team, that could be a really intriguing team to watch.
No, absolutely. And I'm just pretty much one more week and we're back at it. I will say I had lunch with a local Minnesota hockey player, Joe LeBate. He signed with the Vancouver Canucks. I had lunch with him pretty much the day before he flew out, and he was saying that morning he had a skate, I think with like Van Riemsdyk, Nate Schmidt was there, and Fleury was in net, and he was like starstruck. He's like, he had no idea. He knew the other guys were going to be there, but he had no idea Fleury was going to be there, and he was like, dude, he was so sharp. And this was right before like the Pittsburgh PTO was announced, that he was like, dude, he was still so sharp and like so ready to play. He could totally play like another game or another year or whatever. Then the news came out, and I was like, oh yeah, well, yeah, he was getting in some work. And then was it the couple days later, Liz Sheppers, now 2-time champion with the Frost. She brought the Walter Cup to Back Channel Brewing, and I was there doing some work with Josh Letty, one of the owners. And no joke, Joe, someone bumps into me, and I look to my right, and all I see is someone holding either 3-on-3 stacks of plastic cup beers. And right before the words left my mouth, uttering, can I help you? Lo and behold, Billy Guerin holding all these beers, taking them to the table, Shepherd's table, and having a little celebration with everybody there. And all I hear is, sorry there, bud, sorry there. And I was just like, okay, you got a handle on this. Yeah, but,
that's funny.
So I was gonna say, that's the only time I've ever, or like the second time I've ran into Billy Guerin in public. One time we talked a little hockey. This time, starstruck, and didn't want to be the guy to be like, hey,
he was pretty busy there.
Yeah, he seemed like he had his hands full.
Well,
all
awesome.
right.
We'll have a training camp coming up, obviously this week, and then we'll do another mailbag like this, next month probably as camp is finishing up, as we go to the start of the regular season. We got some good guests coming up. Eddie Olczyk. Recorded with him, so he'll probably be next week's podcast, and we'll have Mike Russo on some point, a couple weeks here too. But thanks so much for joining us, Isha. Thanks for stepping in for this meaty mailbag, so to speak, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Final question brought to you as always by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com. Throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Hats, quarter zips, golf shirts, you name it. And actually, that's what we're going to get into here, because it's not often that Waggle does something that truly surprises me. Again, they always have great new releases that will catch my interest, catch me off guard a little, but they've gone a completely new direction with their latest release that everyone needs to go check out. It's funny, actually, my brother-in-law was sending me texts, I think this past weekend, because a couple of the designs leaked on social but weren't available to buy yet. And he was like freaking out trying to figure out how to buy these. First thing I want to point out here for Waggle, if you go to their website, again, reminder, getyourwaggleon.com. If you check out their new releases, the first thing you're going to see are some immaculate hats. These are corduroy brim hats that all have a lot more realistic nature designs on them, from a wolf to a grizzly bear to a loon. You got the Brittany out in the field with a pheasant. It's just such a great collection in general, but then getting that corduroy brim on it just gives it a little extra oomph. Another thing that you all should be aware of, they actually have some very interesting crew neck knit sweaters. Some are more just right there in your face. Got an awesome loon, ducks, fish popping out at you, or my personal favorite, there's a black grizzly sweater where it's kind of more like the sublimated colors. So it's a really dark gray shirt with black details that make the bear's face. I love all of the different designs where they're actually hiding things in them. So well done, Waggle. The last one that you all need to be aware of, because this isn't necessarily my cup of tea, to my wife's dismay, because she loves them, but they are rocking flannels. That's right. 4 different flannel designs. Again, I personally, hand up, I'm not a flannel guy. I don't think I ever will be, but I know all of you, as we transition to the fall here, which let's hope it's more than 2 or 3 weeks like we usually get, but true fall, I see these flannels everywhere. So if you're going out apple picking, hitting up bonfires, or just hitting up some fun tailgates, make sure that you got something that's not too warm, but at least a little warm just to get you through. Again, go check them out. They've got new designs releasing every couple of weeks, it feels like now. But this latest release, the most different from their standard, if they even have a standard with how all over the place these awesome designs are. But definitely go check it out, whether you're new to Waggle or if you feel like you've seen the same old, this is not that. Another one that I'll just point out one individually because it stems into my clothes here. They do have a lot more like casual garb too now. They've got like long sleeve tees, and the one I'm looking at here, raise your stein and read your line. Prost. And it's a loon that's all dressed up in the lederhosen, whatever. It's got blue and white Argyle in the background. And I love this shirt because I love Oktoberfest so dearly. It is a very unfortunate that pretty much all of the breweries that I love are doing their Oktoberfests this coming weekend, Saturday. So please go out and support whoever your favorite brewery is. But if you want to have any outside chance of running into us, you'll see myself, maybe Isha, at Lupulin Brewing this Saturday for their Oktoberfest party. And also, if you want to come out and grab some beers, the first noon Vikings game, it's going to be a heck of an Ultimate Vikings game day experience over at Back Channel Brewing. So definitely catch us at one, catch us at both, or if there's somewhere else you want us to hit you up, shoot us a DM. We can maybe finagle it in. But that is a wrap here for this week. Again, appreciate all of you tuning in as you do every week. Do it all, the subscribes, the likes, whatever you can do. But tune in next week. We got a couple of potential interviews to be dropping. I'm pretty sure it's either going to be Eddie Olczyk or Mike Russo. But until then, stay classy, stay hockey.